the market that outlived its empire. It was never meant to survive the fall. Empires collapse, banners burn, laws dissolve. But this market remained, trading quietly as rulers vanish around it. Long after the empire that created it disappeared from maps, the market continued to set prices, move goods, and decide who prospered. To understand how a market could outlive an empire, we must return to a time when imperial power felt permanent. Roads stretched across continents. Armies enforced order. Taxes flowed predictably toward a distant capital. At the heart of this system sat a vast commercial hub, part exchange, part clearinghouse, part social contract. Officially, it served the empire. In reality, it served something older and more resilient: mutual dependence. The first reveal begins with the market structure. It was not owned by the state, nor governed entirely by law. Merchants organized it through custom, reputation, and enforceable norms that worked faster than imperial courts. Prices were set through consensus. Disputes were resolved internally. Credit flowed based on trust earned over years, not decrees issued from above. The empire benefited from the order, but it did not control it. The second beat followed as cracks formed in imperial authority. Wars drained treasuries. Provinces resisted taxation. Central administration slowed under its own weight. Yet inside the market, trade continued. Merchants adjusted routes. Credit adapted. Goods found new paths. While the empire weakened, the market recalibrated. What became clear, too late for the rulers, was that economic life had already detached from political power. The empire governed territory. The market governed survival. Farmers needed buyers. Artisans needed materials. Cities needed food. And the market provided all of it without asking who ruled, only whether contracts would be honored. As imperial officials argued over reforms, merchants quietly rewrote their own rules. They diversified currencies, shifted credit networks, reduced dependence on state guarantees. By the time imperial collapse arrived, the market no longer needed the empire to function. When the banners finally fell, the shock was political, but not economic. Trade resumed the next day. Prices adjusted. Credit rolled forward. The market endured, not because it resisted power, but because it had learned how to ignore it. And in that quiet continuity lay a truth that would unsettle every empire that followed. The empire's collapse unfolded unevenly. Some regions descended into chaos, others declared independence, and a few attempted to restore fragments of imperial authority. Yet across all of them, the market behaved with unnerving consistency. Stalls reopened, ledgers were updated, credit obligations were honored as if nothing had changed. For ordinary people, this continuity mattered more than proclamations from distant capitals. As the reveal deepened, historians later realized why the market survived. Its rules were portable. Unlike imperial law, which depended on enforcement from above, market customs traveled with merchants themselves. A handshake in one city carried meaning in another. A reputation earned in one port followed a trader across borders that no longer officially existed. Trust, once established, proved more durable than decrees carved in stone. The conflict emerged when new rulers attempted to seize control. Claimants to power demanded taxes, imposed tariffs, and issued new currencies, believing authority could be asserted through regulation. But the market resisted quietly. Merchants priced goods to offset tariffs. Credit shifted to alternate routes. Currencies were accepted by weight, not by face value. Attempt to dominate trade only pushed it elsewhere. Some leaders tried cooperation instead. They offered protection, standardized measures, and dispute resolution in exchange for recognition. Where they respected market norms, prosperity followed. Where they ignored them, commerce withered. The lesson spread quickly among emerging states. Legitimacy flowed from facilitating exchange, not commanding it. The buildup intensified as rival powers competed for the market's favor. Cities offered exemptions. Regions lowered tolls. Authorities adopted the market's own standards into law, codifying customs that had existed long before their rule. What began as accommodation became dependence. Political power now bent around economic reality, not the other way around. By this stage, the market no longer belonged to any empire, past or present. It had become an institution unto itself, shaping borders, alliances, and policies through incentives rather than force. Empires could rise around it, but none could fully absorb it without breaking what made it work. The realization unsettled rulers across Europe. If markets could survive empires, then power was not where it was assumed to be. It was embedded in networks of trust, exchange, and mutual need, structures that outlasted flags and thrones. And as history moved forward, this market became a blueprint, a reminder that systems grounded in cooperation can endure even when the powers that claim them fall away. The reckoning came quietly, without collapse or coronation. It arrived as acceptance. New rulers, old claimants, and emerging councils finally understood what force had failed to achieve. The market could not be owned. It could only be hosted. The climax unfolded when a coalition of regional authorities convened not to command the exchange, but to listen to it. Merchants, carriers, lenders, and guild leaders were invited to speak openly about what allowed trade to function and what caused it to vanish. The answers were simple, almost unsettling in their clarity. Predictable rules, fair enforcement, neutral protection, and above all, restraint. Power that interfered less lasted longer. For the first time since the empire's fall, governance aligned with reality. Authorities abandoned exclusive privileges and replaced them with open access. They standardized weights, measures, and dispute mechanisms according to the market's long-standing customs. Taxes were simplified, tolls reduced, and enforcement focused on safety rather than extraction. The market responded immediately. Trade volumes rose. Credit returned. Food flowed where it was needed most. The resolution did not restore the empire, nor did it try to. Instead, it produced something quieter and more durable, a partnership between political authority and economic life, each respecting the limits of the other. Rulers provided stability. The market provided prosperity. Neither pretended to be the source of the other's legitimacy. Over time, the exchange became a reference point across Europe. States sent envoys not to conquer it, but to study it. Scholars wrote about its resilience. Leaders learned that survival did not depend on domination, but on integration into systems older than their reigns. The market's endurance reshaped how power itself was understood. What this story leaves behind is not nostalgia for a lost empire, but clarity about what outlasts power. Institutions rooted in cooperation, adaptability, and trust can survive collapse, invasion, and ambition. They do not resist history. They absorb it. And as modern systems grow larger, faster, and more centralized, the lesson becomes harder to ignore. Control can command for a time, but only cooperation can endure beyond it. So, what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again? The